Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're sitting as council, and I can't go wrong because I can say full complement of council members are here. This is a special meeting of council to discuss budget. We do have some visitors with us. We do have a number of staff with us, including our clerk and deputy clerk. Welcome, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at 10:03 a.m. Our first item is our land acknowledgement statement. The Township of Hamilton is situated within the traditional territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. Our work on these lands respectfully acknowledges their resilience and their long-lasting contribution to the area now known as the Township of Hamilton. Do we by any chance have any additions to our agenda today? Seeing none? Motion to confirm the agenda. Prepared motion reads that the agenda for the special council meeting held on December 16th, 2024 be approved. Moved by Larry, seconded by Mark. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Is there anyone with us or online that would like to ask questions under our public question period in respect to our agenda items? Seeing no one, we'll move on.
Declaration of pecuniary interest.
Oh, yes, my mistake. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none, that shall be recorded. Special council meeting minutes. Special council budget 2025 meeting number 1 being December 11th last week. Prepared motion that the minutes of the December 11th, 2024 special council meeting be adopted. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by John, seconded by Larry. Excuse me. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Business arising from previous minutes. At the special council meeting budget 2025 meeting 1 held on December 11th, 24, it was requested the following information be provided. Public Works Garage Edition, condition of truck 54, review submission agreement for Ravine Drive review subdivision agreement for Ravine Drive to determine if there is a clause related to stormwater management pond maintenance. Funding amount of brickwork for Cold Springs. Lucas, are we turning this part right here over to you right now? Is that our process, or are we moving forward in the budget? Very well. Please, Nazrat. Nazrat, before you even speak, I just want to say this is our second day of budget. It's a huge amount of work. The method in which you present it to us is very easy for us to follow. We appreciate that. We appreciate the effort that you put into it in getting prepared to make the presentations. However, we also recognize there are many other people in various different departments that work hard starting early on in the year to get the information available for us for these budget meetings. So thank you one and all. Nazrat, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff is requesting that council approve 2025 draft operating and capital budget. If I can take everyone to Appendix A of the staff report, I'll go through the operating budget first, and then I'll go over the capital budget. If I can take everyone to page 45. So at this first special budget meeting, which was held on the 11th of December, staff proposed a budget increase of 6.3%. And during the budget deliberation, council approved to transfer additional $100,000 to general reserve to offset future OPP costing. That took the budget increase to 7.3%. Factoring in the assessment growth of 0.9%, the net levy increase is 6.4%. For average household with current value assessment of $335,000, this equates to an increase of $10 per month or $120 per year. I want to remind everyone something that I've said in the past or last week, that we have Township of Hamilton. We actually have one of the lowest residential tax rate, if not the lowest residential tax rate in Northumberland County. If you look at our base increase, you will see that our base is actually increasing right now by 2.8% because of the additional $100,000 that was transferred to reserve. Other than that, our base was actually increasing by 1.8%, which is lower than CPI. CPI right now is 2%. Staff at the township, we take budgeting very seriously, and because we recognize how it directly impacts our residents. During the budget deliberation last week, council actually had a question on the cenotaph. So we have to actually power wash and clean it because the inscriptions are not colored. It's actually sandblasted into the granite, and it will take us $300 to clean it. And we can observe that within our budget. There was no other follow-up question during the operating budget. Is there any question? Does council have any question on operating budget?
Seeing none, thank you on that.
Thank you. If I can request everyone to go to page 143, please. That is the capital budget. At the first special budget meeting, we requested a budget of $4,535,000. For this version, we're actually requesting to increase that by $15,000. If you can go to page 145, you will see there is a project that we have highlighted in yellow. That's a new project that we are adding. It's the Civic Arena score clock for $15,000. 50% will be funded from donation and 50% will be funded from the recreation reserve. I am going to be requesting Trevor Clapperton to speak to that project.
Thank you, Nazrat. Through you, Mayor. Just a correction, it's actually the Lions Arena score clock, not the Savic Turf score clock. We were approached by the Minor Hockey Association wanting to invest some money into the facility that they now use. One of the requests was that they've done with other municipalities was provide the score clock for it. We've had issues with our score clock the last couple of years, just with some of the humidity and whatnot getting into it and making some repairs. So it is due for replacement. So in order to offset the cost, they've offered to pay for 50% of the cost of that. And we've had a private business come forward and willing over the next few years to sponsor the other part of the 50% cost over the next 6 to 7 years. So therefore that will cover the cost of the entire score clock.
With that payment over 6 or 7 years, we'll fund it up front and it'll go back in after the fact.
Correct. So it'll take 6 or 7 years to pay that part of it, but they will continue on that sponsorship for as long as it be, but they're committing to the first 6 or 7 years.
Thank you. Any questions on this component? Have you progressed far enough? I know this has happened quickly. Have you progressed far enough to know that the total dollar value is reasonable?
Yes, we received 2 quotes, both in the $13,000 to $14,000 range, and then there's some additional costs for a lift for lifting it up, putting it into place.
Thank you.
During the first budget deliberation, council also had some additional questions on roads projects. So roads facility project, roads fleet project, as well as stormwater project. Lucas Kali is here. He is going to go through those. I do want to mention that the budget enhancement sheets for the garage addition, expansion and dump truck has been updated or revised to ensure that the answers are there. I'm going to pass the floor to Lucas now.
Thanks.
Maybe for everyone, Nesbitt pages.
Page 143, please.
And the enhancement pages are numbered with.
For the garage expansion, it is 172. For the dump truck, it's 177.
I'm sure that will help. Thanks, Nesbitt.
Thanks, Nazat. So good morning, council. During the first budget meeting, council did ask for additional review and information regarding the garage addition or expansion. Staff did take that into consideration and came back with two options. As you can see in the enhancement sheet, we did look at a smaller option to house some of the smaller vehicles. We did propose here as option 2 as 40 by 60 garage where we would house the smaller vehicles. We do currently have 6 smaller units that are stored in the bigger bays. But those, the review is there or the information is there. I did give a template of what it looked like, as well as options or scenarios based on the aerial imagery and talking to other staff of our current layout of the property. So the information is there. I do believe through these discussions, there needs to be more information, more details that need to be understood regarding our property and what the best intentions or best way to create more storage for this facility. So I don't want to, and I think Nazar, you can help me out here, but there was discussions about getting more detail and coming back to council at a later date, because like I say, I don't want to commit to one scenario. My staff, I've included my staff during these conversations. Some of them don't support a smaller garage. They feel that maybe we should add just 2 bays onto the cold storage. So I do feel that there needs to be more review of our property, looking at obviously conceptual designs as well as utility locations, because I don't want to commit to something and then have problems for hydro and gas services.
Lucas, I support your thoughts of more review and consideration totally. The concept of a smaller building for smaller vehicles was first brought to your attention last Wednesday or Thursday, I guess it was. So the turnaround time has been minimal. However, dealing with a budget item is probably something we need to do now and fine tune location, configuration, bay doors and that type of thing in the future. Do you feel that the 210 ask in option 2, I think it is a realistic dollar value to provide some flexibility? Or do you feel that that number could possibly get closer to 250 and provide more space, more opportunity, more flexibility, and better usage in the long run?
So through the review, I did run, I think, I believe a 90 square foot for a garage of this commercial residential structure. Speaking to other staff or other departments, they felt that was a fair number, but if there is, because it is, I believe, being transferred out of reserves, if there is a number that we can work with and come back with other scenarios, designs around the 250, we know kind of where our base budget is. I could definitely support that.
Thank you. Gonna ask for questions. Sean, you're ahead of me a bit. Go ahead.
I believe we should have some flexibility within that budget itself. I know we discussed in the previous meeting about insulation, heaters, et cetera. So it does increase costs. So we should have some flexibility. And I know that first of all, the ask was 825,000. And it's from development charges and the roads facility reserve. So we do have flexibility within that project base. So not to say that we have to spend the whole complete 825,000, but just the fact there is flexibility there. So I'm in favor of that. Come back with some diagram drawings and more cost.
And John, are you supportive of the new throwout number of 250 for reasonable approval at this point in time?
Yes, for reasonable approval. Yeah, I think that's a good starting point.
Fellow council members, Mark.
Just a quick question, Lucas, you mentioned that some weren't, you're not 100% sure that smaller building was exactly what you wanted. You mentioned that you may add on to the cold storage building, put 2 bays in there, that kind of thing. Is 250 going to be enough, or should we be budgeting 300 and saying, do what you can?
To you, Mr. Mayor, may I suggest something? Would council be okay if staff removes this request from 2025 budget now and bring back a report in early 2025 with some additional information on design, plan, and location, and give options to council at that time? Because right now, clearly, we just don't have all the information.
That's kind of where I was kind of going, or if you couldn't give that answer or didn't feel comfortable with that answer. I was leaning to that also, because we're not taking us out of the levy.
I'll get a head shake of council members, I guess, unless you need a motion, Nazrat. I think we're going to end up with a motion. However, I point out that I get the feeling of the room that council members don't necessarily want to get terribly close to the 825 that we started with.
I have a motion for-
Motion prepared. Seeing it. The council withdraws the Public Works Garage Addition request from the 2025 capital budget and directs staff to bring back a report in early 2025 with a detailed design plan and location for budget approval. And I'm assuming that that would go through coordinators to begin with before it got back to council. Okay. Moved by Mark, seconded by Larry. Any follow-up questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Lucas.
So the next item for roads is the truck replacement, dump truck replacement. I did update the budget enhancement sheet, which starts on page 177. Did add in some detail notes of truck 54, which will become the spare. We have some ongoing maintenance issues with that truck. I have mentioned a couple comments, couple bullet points within the budget enhancement sheets, as well as photos to go through just about that truck. And those photos would be on page 183. But I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about either truck 45 or 54.
My comment, Lucas, would be the pictures are great and an effort to show us things. When you look at them though, from a non-review in-person perspective, things look great except for a bit of rust on the frame. So I'm sure there's electrical issues and salt issues related to any number of things.
And there is a little bit more detail on page 179 where it talks about PTO shaft and pump assembly. We've had some issues where that's had to be replaced a couple times, machine shopped. But I did put a few other components in there about truck 54.
And just to be clear, if we approve this today, then our prospective delivery of a truck could be 24 or 30 months out as a best guess.
Correct.
And we would be making every effort to keep truck 54 with its list of items on the road for that duration of time, at which time it would go to a reserve truck, backup truck.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's only a question because I just wonder, is there ever any opportunity to look for a good used vehicle of this kind that some other municipality might be on surplus? We know, having done some of these, but acquisitions over the years, sometimes we can't afford new stuff and there's no opportunity for that. I'm only asking because I don't know about this.
So through you, Mayor, looking at gov deals where typically most municipalities do auction stuff off, I've never seen anything that's fairly new. In the value, I know we sold one of our old trucks this year. I don't have I think we got about $26,000 for a truck, so I don't see any real benefit of buying a used truck that's 4 or 5 years. Typically, we get very good deals on the new stuff or fair value on the new stuff, and then we'd obviously auction our old one off for sub deals. But I can definitely look at something if there is something that happens to be circulated on gov deals. We usually look at it every month, and if there was something that came that met our needs, we could definitely report back to council.
My observation over the years is there's a lot more stuff available out there that's in the condition that 54 will be in 2 years and 45 is in today. And bringing those home would not be a desirable thing. However, maybe there's a demo out there or something like that that we could keep our eyes open for. And that's possibly what Bruce was considering, some low mileage thing rather than something that's got too much age on it. Thank you. Any follow-up, Bruce? Arthur?
Just to your point, we have effectively used or looked for models that are a year old that are sitting on lots, either demo or just the year-old models for pickup trucks in particular in the past. But certainly we can look at all options, whether they're just not in rusty state, but if they're either demonstrator or just old year-old models that they might be just done.
Thank you. Larry, question?
I have two questions. One is, even if we went ahead with this truck, we're still looking at $25,000 worth of repairs that would be for 54, is that right? Or is that the 45?
So we will still have to maintain these trucks a little bit, right? Just for safeties and annual safety. So there is some annual expenses that will come through. Staff will obviously, if it's needed, we will definitely be replacing it. Because 45, because of the purchasing and the delays, that we will still need to keep this truck for 2 to 3 years. So there will be some expenses needed for that vehicle.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, if we put this truck on Gov Deal, who buys this kind of truck?
The public, anybody can sign into the portal. It doesn't cost anything to sign up as a user, and you can review and bid on it as you wish.
So other municipalities may buy it?
Correct.
So the question I've had in the past is, why are we always driving around in brand new trucks? And I'm just bringing this up and I just want to clarify that one of the reasons that we do buy new trucks and have a plan to replace them is that we can't afford to not have these in good repair and in good shape for the future. When we need them, we got them. So I know people have always made that reference to, why are we always buying new trucks? We got the nicest fleet in the whole county. Well, yeah, but we need them that way. So that's my only comments. Thank you.
I'll follow up with Larry and then Bruce yourself. I sometimes have a program at home where I spend $1,000 on a vehicle that after I get the $1,000 spent, it's only worth the $300 it was worth before I spent the $1,000 on it. And I don't depend on them every morning at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the wintertime to go plow snow. That's a personal comment that I find myself caught in many times. Bruce? What Bruce and Mark are discussing over there is 54 is a 2014 model. So it will be that 12 to 13 years old when we get rid of it. Or sorry, yeah, 12 to 13, 14 years old when it gets into its reserve position.
Spare truck,
Yeah.
yes.
Any other comments or questions? John?
Remember, our repair budget for the public works, I forgot what that amount was. For vehicles.
We did increase it to 149,000 in 2025.
My next question is more of a comment on truck 54. When you give us the 5 different points here, like your PTO shaft and pump assembly has been modified and replaced several times. That's going to be done again probably every year. Your wiring, your transmission repair and ongoing issues. That's what scares me is the transmission repair and ongoing issues. That seems like we're going to probably eat up $25,000 a year, if more, on this vehicle alone. So all I can say is good luck.
So 54, we did send it to a machine shop and had to get readjusted. The pump shaft and the pump was out of alignment, so it was throwing bearings. We hopefully cured it. The transmission is it seems to lock into some different gears and having, because everything is computerized now, we had to tow it up to the local dealership in Peterborough. Hopefully we diagnosed it. It was a couple computer chips, processors. But knock on wood, so far this winter being out there for the last 6 or 7 storms, we hadn't had any issues with it. But there is, like I say, 54 has some items to it that we're working on.
What route does it do, Lucas? Do you know?
Northeast Harwood area.
One of the areas that maybe gets more winter than the south end of the township. Thank you. Any other questions on this component? I didn't say who lived in that territory. Apparently by your faces over here on the north side of the building, you got that though.
I'll just think my thought pattern if here is if I see the truck on the side of the road, I'll just invite them in for breakfast and coffee. So keep them warm.
Anyway, we're deviating early today. It took us quite a while last week to get to the giddy stage, but we're here now. We're only 32 minutes in. Any other questions on truck replacement? Lucas, are you staying with or are you going away from an aluminum box on these proposed new trucks?
I'm done with the new truck, but I do have one verbal comment about the stormwater capital plan.
No, actually, my question was specifically, are you staying with or going away from the aluminum boxes that you have had in the past, recent trucks?
Going away from them, we're gonna go to hard Ardoc steel.
Stormwater, Lucas, I think is next topic, as you mentioned.
So the next question that was risen in council at the budget meeting last week was about the stormwater. There wasn't any updates to the budget enhancement sheet. I'll just verbalize it that looking at the subdivision agreement, And thank you to the planning and the clerk's department to do some review on this. But it more or less said after 2 years of building and grading of this subdivision, and once assumption has made, we've assumed it, all responsibilities is with the township. So that's where we will continue or proceed with the review of this stormwater investigation. And if there is any details that need to be brought back to council, I will do so.
Thank you for the information. It's what I think we all expected, but at the same time, we're hoping it was something better than that. As we move forward with our subdivision agreements in the future, maybe we need to have a discussion around the staff table going, what's this going to do for us from a budget perspective, from a work and maintenance perspective as years progress? Thank you. Any questions for Lucas on this topic? Seeing none, Nezrat, back to you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there weren't any other follow-up questions for capital budget. Does council have any question on the proposed 2025 capital budget?
At this point in time, what I hear Nezrat saying, she's asking us for all items on all components of capital.
That's right.
So if we don't have any further questions in a general sort of way, we could be 6 minutes away from approving the budget. Am I thinking right, Nezrat?
That's correct.
Larry has questions. Please.
Just going back to Public Works. In the comments and responses in the survey, there was one comment that sort of stood out on infrastructure. And it specifically concerns about road maintenance, particularly Cavan Road. And can we just get a sense of that? There was a huge number of responses on Cavan Road. Just to get us a sense that we're responding to those residents who are concerned about that, because it's not on the books.
So staff did review and comment on the survey. We did recently hire a geotechnical engineer through our operating budget to start the review of Cavan Road reconstruction. It is 6.1 kilometers in length. We asked for geotechnical investigation because if anybody drove it, there's a lot of ups and downs, heaving, moving of culverts. We have not received any information to date regarding the geotechnical review. But it is something that we will continue to monitor. And if there is a need to do any maintenance, we will continue, but probably in the near future, Cavan Road will be being proposed. Can't give any specific dates, but like I say, it's 6.1 kilometers, and usually we do about 2 kilometers of paving every year. So give or take, it would be probably in 3 different phases to complete Cavan Road. So we are looking at it, taking it seriously, but I don't know any ways to do rehabilitation or reconstruction until I get these engineering reports back.
Okay, thank you. Just one other question. Can we continue to monitor the brushing on Cavan Road just to make sure that we're at least addressing that issue? Because apparently there's a lot of issues with the brushing.
So the brushing is completed now. As those surveys were coming in, we did get calls from residents, taxpayers. So I would say most of the brushing has been is completed now. I'm just not sure the timing of when those questions were answered and asked.
Okay, thank you, Lucas.
Anything further on roads? John, please.
Yes, why? Well, your road's still here, Mill and Oak Streets. It's a 2-year project transferred in reserves. So that is, we have enough money now to proceed forward.
No, we still don't. That's why we keep on putting some money aside in Mill and Oak Street reserves for this. We are continuing with the engineering and design of that. During the review of the engineering, the outlet to Rice Lake, they feel that we may have to add an additional outlet. So there's obviously Ministry of Environment needs to be communicated with. So there is some components we're working on and hoping to have something for 2026. for the approvals.
Anything further for Lucas? Lucas, the other day, last Wednesday, I guess it was, we had a quick discussion on the opportunity to take money from DC for when there was road improvements being done. And the specific road improvement that I asked you about was from gravel to pavement. We have a proposal for $31,000 for Bill Lang Road. Would there be any opportunity, or would there be any advantage? Or would it in fact be a disadvantage if we looked at taking some of that money from development charges? Hopefully I've made that clear.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in order for us to use DC, growth component has to be considered, meaning is there any growth around that area? Does that include, so does that increase the traffic in that area because of that growth? I don't think Bill Land Road has any kind of growth or increase in traffic. Because of it, it will be difficult for us to justify using DC.
That clarifies, because I did ask that question last week, and there was the thought that new development wasn't necessarily a component of being able to use DC charges, where as I moved away from the meeting, I got thinking about that more and wondered if that was a definitive answer. I think we're there today. Thank you both. Anything further for the roads end of things?
Is there any question on capital budget?
Lucas, it's not directed towards your department, so. I'm okay. You're okay. It's actually directed towards fire service. And I quite openly stated last week, and I will probably every day that I come through this organization, that deficit financing, which I think is a phrase that I invented here and people have picked up on it, bothers me. Especially when that deficit financing is from our savings accounts, being our reserves. Last week, we talked about the $90,000 for the pickup truck. And I heard the answers and I heard the discussion and agreed that the information was correct. As I moved forward with my thoughts and my questions, I realized that if we were to defer that pickup truck until the 2027 budget, we actually have money in the reserve fund that would purchase that truck. Now, our fire chief is hearing that for the very first time today. I did reach out to him last week and wasn't able to connect. And so I'm in a lot of ways putting Mike on the spot. And I'm not sure how my fellow council members would feel about that. However, I'm going to ask Nezra a question to clarify, correct anything I may have said wrong in the last minute or two. If we were to take the $90,000 pickup truck and defer it 1 year into the 2026 budget, which was what was discussed last week, we have no impact on the budget or the deficit financing component at the end of 2026. We just slide it ahead or back, however you want to say it, by 12 months. And that's where we left it last week. That's where everybody was happy last week. And I was too at that moment in time. But because of my idiosyncrasies of not liking to borrow money anywhere, I came up with the question, Nezrat, if we were to slide that into the 2027 budget, would we have money in the reserve to keep it in the black, considering the other purchases that we have to take out of there in 2027?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we move $90,000 from 2025 to 2027, by the end of 2027, there will be a surplus of $1,000. Keep in mind, in 2027, there is another vehicle slotted in the forecast for additional $90,000. So that's two $90,000 vehicle in 2027.
Thank you. Now, the critical question comes back to you, Mike. Is it reasonable or unreasonable from a maintenance, from a usage point of view? And I'll throw in the word that we always are cognizant of from a safety point of view. Not only of what's on the table for the two trucks, but for the third truck, it's moving on out of the fleet. So logical, safety, those types of things, Mike, please.
To you, Mayor, first thing I'd like to address is the wish of council to have the reserve budget in a positive impact. That $1,000 remains whether we purchase the truck today or whether we purchase the truck next year or whether we purchase the truck in 2027. On the current projection in 2027, there will be a positive of the budget of $1,119. So regardless whether we push it 1 year or 2 years, and we're looking at now to 27, the first time that the forecast becomes in a positive for fire under the current forecast is 2027. So whether we purchase in 25, 26, or 27, the outcome is the same. Albeit the deficit does change by $90,000 per year that you hold that. First off, and you can appreciate this with vehicles, small vehicles, probably more control, large vehicles, less control. Those $90,000 tags that we put there are our best guess for today's pricing. So the second thing I would say, if I have to purchase a vehicle in 2 more years, 90,000 is there, as you see, for the same like, kind, and quality. I'm hoping that that's there, but I don't have that crystal ball. Thirdly, I'll take you on the discovery mission of the vehicles, so you have some more conversation piece. Not unlike Lucas's idea and theory with roads, we similarly are trying to get maximum use out of our vehicles before we surplus them. In the past, pickup trucks were bought and placed brand new in the stations for passenger use and utility use. A number of those vehicles time out in age long before they kilometer it. One of the proposed theories that we did was to put them in the administrative positions in the chief's hands, use them for a number of years until they had some kilometers on them, and then put them back into the fleet. And that is the proposal that was here for the truck we number 599, or the truck that you'll know that is driven by the deputy fire chief. The vehicle that is coming out of service is a 2008 3/4 ton that currently has 173,000 kilometers and has been in the fleet for 16 years. So quick math, we put about 10,000 kilometers per year on that truck. The deputy chief's truck is a 2018 that currently has 123,000 kilometers on it in the last 6 years. So we put about 20,000 kilometers on those vehicles. By 2027, on that same forecast, that vehicle would exceed 200,000 kilometers. Also a concern of why we would want to put those back in the fleet. So 2 things I offer to council is, once they exceed the 200,000, what is the viability of them becoming spares, not knowing the life of the vehicle? And secondly, this has been a forecast and in a plan, and something we've worked very diligently about removing the large platform vehicles, so we're not driving those vehicles for our administration work and some of our smaller responses. As I did in the first budget deliberation, I'm happy to defer to council's wishes. Those are the facts that are in front of you. I defer to you for your decision.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for the that much detail in that short of order on those questions. Nazrat, yes?
May I also add one more point? It is possible, most likely, the price will increase every year, right? So 2025, we're projecting 90,000, 26, 27, we're not sure, but we can very confidently say that price will increase. So that $1,000 surplus that I've mentioned may not be there. when we actually purchase it.
And I guess as a final, we'd be amiss not to also say that those projections are based on an increase of transfer to vehicle reserve to 500,000 for 2027, 580,000 in 2028, and 680,000 in 2029. So on top of all this, we're also increasing the reserve contributions by 80,000 and then 100,000 for 27, 28, and 29.
I don't know whether I can live long enough to get these reserves all back in the black or not.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
And that's outside of me being here, by the way. And that's not necessarily. Bruce, I think you were forming a question over there, if I'm mistaken,
Are these, this replacement vehicle is just like a regular half-ton quad cab truck? Is there any special equipment on it?
Obviously lights and cap and slide out tray. And then this one would currently be purchased as a half ton. At some point in our fleet projection, we are removing all 3/4 ton trucks from our fleet with the exception of one, which will be housed at station 1. So the next 3 trucks that are on the kind of the replacement schedule was to be this one in 25. The one that you see under the capital forecast for a mini rescue, or we had discussion about that 5,500 chassis, that would eliminate a 3/4 ton. And then in 2027, there's a very good possibility we should look at that truck being a daily driver, being a 3/4 ton truck for a chief to drive for a few years. And then it would be back into the fleet to replace that one out of station 1. Never having the intention of the half ton or 3/4 ton trucks that they would be placed brand new in the fleet for any use, including response or administration.
follow-up question. You didn't have a follow-up, did you, Bruce? Okay. John, Larry, questions? I'm thinking we all realize the information that's just hit the table again. And at the same time, I'm sure, knowing each and every one of you as well as we are, we don't like this deficit financing of these reserve funds. So we're probably all in the same position, but we keep coming to the same conclusion, I'm sure. John, question?
No question, just a comment, just basically say that, seeing the scenario we just given, and we've had the same concept the last time we were here. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to really trip over my feet, because I think if we don't do it now, the costs are going to increase in next year and the year after, so therefore we'll be paying even more and we'll lose our deficit again. So it's better off to work with zero and work our way back up again.
Najat?
To you, Mr. Mayor. I do get that for 2025 and 2026, we are projecting a significant deficit for fire. However, there are some plans that we have, which is increasing the contribution. It will take the fire reserve in a very good position by the end of 2031. So we do have a plan based on the forecast that we have. I do know 25-26 looks bad because of the deficit, but if we go with the plan that we have, which incorporates the forecast that Mike presented, the fire chief presented, we should be in good shape. And if I may add, yeah, Mike mentioned that we have to drastically increase contribution to the reserve for the next few years, but we also, at the end of 2032, or sorry, during 2032 budget, we're actually going to be drastically reducing the transfer to the reserve because we'll be in a good shape. Good news story.
Mark?
I'm meeting with John on this one. I think it's a good thing to replace it now. I feel that we'll even get more for our vehicle that we have and we do sell the vehicles that we have in surplus. So, I mean, it is 2008 that we're looking at. I have no problem with the changeover. I think the plan's in place to correct everything, get us back into the black. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
Any other comments? Larry?
I agree with both Mark and John. And the other issue is that until we can grow our residential capacity, increase our revenues, we're gonna constantly be in this deficit position. We can only get so much money from a stone. And until you start getting more pebbles in it, it's gonna be the same thing, so. I think the fire department has done an extensive amount of work in planning for the future. And Nesbitt's done a tremendous job of evaluating and giving us a outlook that I think we can accept. So I think we can nickel and dime it to death, but when it comes down to it, I think we're here where we gotta be. Thank you.
I agree with the comments. However, none of you were courteous enough to reference my stress level when I have to deal with these things. Again, I have an issue with deficit financing and pretty well everyone in the township is going to know that because I keep saying it on a rebate basis. I know that everybody in this room is more than aware of it. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Nezrat. Is there anything further that any of us would like to bring up on anything that is capital or operating related? The only thing we have left to deal with is approve this budget as presented and then move on to water. Any other comments or questions? Bruce?
To you, Mr. Mayor, there was no change when it comes to operating budget, so the percentage increase is not going to change. There was a change when it came to capital budget. So instead of approximately $4.6 million, now the request is for $3.7 million with a motion that has been approved by council that we are going to bring forward another report in early 2025 on the garage expansion.
Okay, are we ready for the motion on operating and capital? Okay. It is recommended the Council of Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council approves report T 2024-28, 2025 second draft operating and capital budget, Township of Hamilton and Building Department. Do I have a mover? Moved by Larry, seconded by Bruce. Any follow-up questions or comments? Just one. And that simply is, I wish we could do better, but I know staff has done this in an unbelievable way to get it in the form that it's in and with as low a percentage as it is. So once again, thank you. And all of those in favor of the motion. Carried, thank you. Water.
To you, Mr. Mayor, staff is requesting that council approve the 2025 draft operating and capital budget for water operation. When we presented the operating budget for water, there was no additional follow-up questions. Does council have any question on water operating budget?
We've got a long day ahead of us, everyone. We can ask all the questions we want here, you know. Any questions on the water budget? Mark?
One quick one, if I could, Nezra. Where are we now with, like, we raised the rates and so forth in the projections, where are we now at the end of the day in doing that? Are we, I think we're still behind?
So for 2025, the rate increase is going to be 5%.
Okay.
We are actually going to be doing a rate study in 2025.
In 2025?
That's right. And that is included in the capital budget request.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Would be anything else you would like to add, Nezrat?
Not in
Anita?
terms of operating budget, but in terms of capital budget, does council have any question? We're requesting 4 projects that we went through last time.
Just to refresh us, could you get us to the right page so we
Page
could look at those
13.
again?
Page 13, please. Is there any question on water capital budget?
I'm not seeing any, Nazareth.
Staff is requesting that council approve water operations operating and capital budget for 2025.
Prepared motion. Council approve report T 2024-29, being the 2025 second draft operating and capital budget for water operations.
Recorded vote, please.
Yes, recorded vote. We've got that coming from multiple sources here right now. So, do we have a motion, please? Well, I have a motion. Do we have a mover? Larry. Seconder. John. Okay. Daphne, can I turn that over to you, please, for a recorded vote? Oh, comments, questions?
I just want to say, I was first elected in 2019. And in those first 4 years, I guess, water was a very contentious issue. Of course, it still is. But this time I think we're running a lot smoother. And we're, maintaining our financial obligations. And we're looking at how we can increase revenue. But again, it comes down to the fact we've got to grow our residential, what do you call it, inventory, let's say. Because we're not going to get out of this with the same people constantly, year after year. So building department, planning department, So anyway, thank you very much, Nesbitt. You're doing, or Anita, you're doing a great job, and Nesbitt, you're doing a great job. But thank you for all you do.
Okay, we'll turn it over to the recorded vote. Daphne, please.
Counselor Butter. Counselor Davison. Counselor Levison.
Yay.
Deputy Mayor Williamson
Yay.
and Mayor Jeff.
Yay.
Carried unanimous.
Well, next item on the agenda is media questions. I don't see anyone in the room and I don't believe we have anyone online. Moving on, nothing for closed, nothing reporting under closed. So our confirmatory bylaw is the bylaw 2024-67 being a bylaw to adapt the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 16th day of December 2024 and to authorize its execution be given a first, second, and third reading and finally pass the 16th day of December 2024. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Mark, second by Bruce. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are about to adjourn, but before we do, I simply wanted to say this is the last time we'll be together as a group before the new year. I want to wish everyone a good holiday. What?
Budget, council meeting tomorrow, December 17th, be here or be.
I've got too many meetings.
Save that until tomorrow.
Uh-oh. Yeah, it's true. It did cause lack of sleep. Anyway, I'll finish the thought. This is one of our last meetings before the new year. Wish everyone a safe holiday and a good time with your families. Move for adjournment. The special council meeting held on December 16th, 2024 be adjourned at 11:02 a.m. Mark, are you moving that? Thank you, Mark. Seconder. Sure. Yeah. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.